Hi photo friends. Today we are going to be talking about the digital camera, and our objective is to be able to understand and demonstrate how a digital camera works. We're just going to do like a little general overview today. So cameras have an image sensor inside of them. It's essentially a big computer chip. It's a light sensitive device that records images that's made up of what's known as pixels. So pixels stands for picture elements. So the image sensor, like I said, it's a image recording device. Don't do this, but it's inside the camera. You see it right there. So whatever is in front of it, it hits that sensor and then it's recording all the amounts of light that's hitting it, and it makes your image. So it commonly doesn't capture the same area as film did. Doesn't really matter, not as many people use film anymore, but just so you know. They do come in different sizes though, it kind of depends on your camera. So what's happening when you take a picture, your image comes through the lens, it hits the image sensor in there, and the image sensor is filled with those pixels. So each pixel is recording an amount of light, and then depending on what your camera is set on, which we'll talk about later, your camera is going to process the image and output a JPEG image, which you can directly print from the camera. Or if you have it set to RAW, the camera is going to save everything that was recorded on that image sensor. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but there's two ways that your camera is going to be saving your images from the image sensor. So the pixel is one of those little squares. I know you've zoomed into a photo really close and all of a sudden it just turns into those little squares. So digital photographs are made up of hundreds of thousands of tiny squares called pixels. And pixels ties into resolution. So resolution is the amount of detail that a camera can capture. Is measured in megapixels. So megapixels is approximately 1 million pixels. So if your camera is a 8 megapixel camera, that means it can capture 8 million pixels. So what makes this important to know is that the greater the resolution, the more megapixels that your picture is, you can crop in really close and you're not going to lose any quality. So I know all of us have like took a picture off the internet and then you try to print it or paste it and all of a sudden it's like just pixelated. That's why. The original picture did not have a lot of megapixels. So when you're shooting with more megapixels, you have sharper images overall. You can also blow your images up really big and you're not going to lose any detail. So the more megapixels you have, the greater resolution, the sharper the images you can have. So if you're looking down there, you can see that original picture, and then what if you just wanted to crop that little kid? Which I would, if you should just take a picture of the little kid. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. If you're cropping in just the kid, if you only had a 4 megapixel picture, you can see it's really blurry because there's not enough image there. 6 is a little better. There's more squares making up the face. 8 is a lot better. So that higher resolution means you can crop closer, and it also allows you to blow up your prints bigger. So that's also why if you're putting images on the web, they don't need to be that big. And we're always kind of putting lower quality images on the web. Not lower quality, but just lower resolution images because it doesn't matter. But if you ever wanted me to print one of those images, I would tell you to save it and send it to me in a higher resolution. Another way to think of it, and if I have an excuse to talk about Nintendo, I will, is our little 8-bit Mario, and then we have the Super Nintendo. So every single reiteration of Mario gets clearer and clearer and clearer because we have more and more pixels. I don't know if that's exactly why, but like to our Nintendo Switch where it looks almost crazy compared to the 8-bit Nintendo. So that's another way I like to think of it. Now, the most important thing is our file types. So we have JPEG and then we have RAW. What you shoot in is up to you, but there's a pretty big difference between the two. So you have to make a conscious choice. So a JPEG is a compressed image, like I said before. So when you're shooting with your camera and you have it on JPEG, what's happening is hits the image sensor. If it's on JPEG, the camera is going to compress that image. So it's going to kind of summarize what you took. It's going to get rid of some of those pixels, and it's going to output a file that you can just take your memory card to Walgreens, put it in the photo kiosk, and just print right away. With a RAW file, it's kind of like a negative. It captures every single bit of light that hit that image sensor it's saving. So it doesn't do any kind of compression. Whatever's on there is on there. So like I said, JPEG you can just print directly from the camera. You don't need an image processing platform, nothing. You just take your memory card, go print. With a RAW file, you need some kind of program to open it and process it. So Lightroom, for instance, you can't take a RAW file and just go print it. You have to use a program to open it. JPEGs are smaller files, which is why a lot of people use them. If you don't have a lot of space, which isn't as big of a problem now as it used to be like 10 years ago, you'd probably want to shoot in JPEGs. A RAW file is a larger file, so same reason. With a JPEG, every time you open that, like we open it on Photoshop or whatever, and we mess with it, save it, if you reopen it, mess with it again, save it, it degrades every single time you do that. So if you like to do a lot of editing and back and forth, a JPEG probably isn't your first choice either. A RAW file saves all that information, so you can keep messing with it, and it also just saves everything. If you have to do a lot of extreme edits, a RAW file is kind of a bit better. And then again, remember, JPEG, your processing is here. RAW file, your processing is on the computer. And then again, so image hits the image sensor. If it's a RAW file, it stops there. It just saves that file there. You can still see it here, but you can't print it or do anything with it. JPEG, the camera does its magic, compresses it, and then you have your output. And then last, our memory cards. So that is how we store our images. Our memory cards, you know, they're various sizes, so they just look like this. They're really easy to lose, so you want to keep track of them. They're reusable. They have different capacities. Some are faster than others. The extreme ones are faster. They're a little more expensive. But you just want to kind of keep track of them. All right, so complete your notes, and then we're going to be doing some practice, and make sure you check off with me when you're finished. Good job.